In this interview, we speak with Zach. He's 28 years old, living on Long Island. He started some escape rooms back in the day and is now a successfully exited entrepreneur moving on to his next venture. He's going to share a little bit about what opening and running escape rooms was like. Let's get started.
Hey, Zach, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to hear about your entrepreneurial journey. And could you just kind of kick things off by telling me a little bit about your education and background?
Yeah, first and foremost, definitely appreciate the opportunity to share this with everybody. So I like to take it all the way back to my parents because that's where we all start, and that plays such a big role into everything. So I was very fortunate to have very solid parents, if you will. And they really just gave me so many tools, so much information. They came from different backgrounds. One came from a very poor family, and I was able to pick up a lot of street smarts, intelligence from him. And my mother came from a super educated background. So I was able to try to pick away at the book smarts, even though I gravitated more towards the street smarts and a deviation away from the intellectual side. But yeah, ended up applying to a bunch of schools, and Binghamton ended up being the spot that was affordable. Couldn't have worked out better. That's where I ended up meeting lots of great friends who played a big role in the journey. And getting into the School of Management is where the business entrepreneurial monster was born, or at least was unleashed, because it was something that I had felt from when I was a child, something that I wanted to do, but I didn't believe in myself. And upon meeting, like the first day of Professor Angelo Angelo's entrepreneurship class, he put on the board the characteristics and qualities of entrepreneurs. And it was just like, check, 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 check. Right. That was like that moment that people talk about in life where you kind of just know what it is. So that's kind of where it all began and went full throttle from there.
That's awesome. I really love your point about family and friends impacting the start of your journey, because I think a lot of times people feel like, they're in things alone. And I felt like, at least personally, once I got to college, it was my friends that were raising me almost as much as my family had up to that point in my life. So I really like that point.
Sure.
In terms of that formal entrepreneurial education, did you take away any key courses or skills that you have now leveraged in your career? Or was it more that street smarts aspect that has helped you out the most? Can you weigh that for us?
For sure. It's definitely the balance is key. Gotta have both. Without that prior background, the educational side is useless, and vice versa. So the educational side saved me a lot of people are like, what's the point of spending money on college, X, Y, and Z? And I'd ask myself that question all the time. And then when I looked at the amount of money that I was able to save from the mistakes that I avoided in learning from that entrepreneurship class, I mean, we're talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention years of time. So that was invaluable. So that entrepreneurship class with that professor, that's the other key thing, is something I used to do in college, and this is really important. On the first day of classes, I would go around to maybe 10 classes in that day, and I'd sit down and I'd listen to the professor. And I'd try to gauge whether or not this professor is really going to add value to my life or not. And then I'd choose and decide if I want to stay with this course. So you might have an entrepreneurship course with two different professors. One might not get the job done, one might. So that's also key to be able to effectively identify that. And then Surinder Kahai, oh my goodness. If you go to Binghamton University, his e-commerce courses, again, he is the perfect example of someone who blends life and business together to help prep you for the big time game.
So I think I would love to hear a little bit about where you found yourself after college and how you got started in your first business, if you could.
So in telling this, I realize this, if you're listening to this, chances are this exact thing will not be applicable to your life, because everyone's story and route is so unique and different. The way I got into it, I would say 3 different career steps. So senior year, I jumped into this internship with a hardware security manufacturing company. Sounds super boring. Frankly, the idea behind it and everything was, but the excitement was building it up. It was a small company, and it was actually, if you've ever seen the show The Profit, quick summary: business is kind of sort of failing. This guy named Marcus Lemonis comes in and does what he can to tweak it, fix it, get it back
Mm-hmm.
up and running, and then turns into a profit. So it kind of fell into one of those opportunities, and did everything I could there. And by going above and beyond, this is the main difference and key. The success was being willing to do everything that nobody else was willing to do. Be the first one there, last one out. Understand each element of the business: the human resources, the accounting, the information systems, the operations, marketing, customer service, you name it. So that was kind of gave me a really solid foundation. After that ended, I was able to build some connections there. And if you evaluate your network, I forgot who said it, but you have 80% of everything you need already within your network. You just have to search.
Yeah.
So was able to get a job at at a venture capital firm as an analyst. And for those whom are unfamiliar with the field, essentially my job was, if you think of Shark Tank, really cool. I was in a room, entrepreneurs came in, and I was an analyst. I'd take notes, and I would collect the information and provide that to the higher ups on whether or not I felt the business was viable and should be invested in. And that's what gave me the confidence, strangely, upon seeing the entrepreneurs that are coming in and the craziest ideas and the foundations that weren't fully there. And I give them a lot of credit for coming in where they were. That's how they learned. They're taking those steps, but a lot of them were not prepared. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw that, okay, I've been leveling up for years. I'm ready now. And at that point, I had to look at how much money I had, which was very, very little. $10,000. I had to look at my skill sets. I said, what can I actually do? Okay, customer service. I really enjoy working with people, talking to people. My interest at the time, I always took this fascination into those criminal investigation shows, those people that escape from prisons and rob banks. And those aren't practical professions unless you build them into escape room games.
Mm-hmm.
So that hit. So I was like, okay, this seems really cool. This seems really fun. I like to have fun. Is this possible? And then I started looking at different escape room websites. And the first thing I was able to do was see the reservation page of other escape room websites. And I was able to put two and two together. I said, okay, if they're booked at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, and they charge $200 a game,
Mm-hmm.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, they're making $1,000.
Right.
And at that time, I was like, oh, if I could do that every Saturday and Friday, like, I'm all in. How much does this cost to make? And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, the industry was so young that you can get away with going to IKEA and getting items from Goodwill to build your escape room. You see, I didn't have the money to build that Hollywood set.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did have was the ability to really interact with the customers and do everything. Customer service is free. So I could do everything in my power to make sure that person was happy, whether give them extra attention, slide them a clue, do whatever I could to enable them to have the best success they could and the
Mm-hmm.
most fun. And you could accomplish that with energy. So I was able to overcompensate with that, even though I didn't have enough money. And slowly but surely things kind of balanced out,
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't have the time to give, but I was able to invest more and make the set really amazing and add
Right.
all those factors and so on and so forth. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not, there's entrepreneurial opportunities that exist in whatever position you're in. There's always room to do something better.
Mm-hmm.
And service is always one of them.
That's awesome. So, something I would love to go into a little bit deeper is it seems like you were looking at the market and evaluating opportunities, maybe not totally
Mm,
necessarily on what you were most passionate about. I feel like you hear
mm.
two stories like, I've had this idea since I was a kid and now I can execute it, or I analyzed and I saw an opportunity and I went for it. So, can you speak to either or both of those situations further?
Definitely, definitely, definitely. And this is going to be different for everyone. So I was reading an article by Mark Cuban where he said passion is out of fashion. Um, and I tend to actually agree with that if you're in your 20s. And I say that because, you know, at first there's this extremely difficult emphasis on what to do, what to become, what should I study, and so forth. I look at this as a blessing and opportunity, but I knew that at the time I had this big monkey on my back of wanting to support my family with money. So I knew the way I evaluated my major was I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a great site, by the way. If you don't know, if you haven't heard
Yeah,
about it and you just want insight onto each career, forget an internship,
we'll link
just
it
check
below.
that out. So much data, and I chose the one with the highest salary. And at first I was like, yeah, maybe I'm not going after my passion. Someone, actually, it was Brad Treat, an entrepreneur out of Rochester. He was the one who told me that, there's two different paths. And one path is that you can focus on making a lot of money. And once you have that money, that enables you to then and go and pursue your passions,
Mhm.
which can be more powerful than attempting to pursue your passion under somebody else, even though that's a perfectly viable route, and plenty can be done with that if the visions align.
So I think just kind of diving into your experience as an entrepreneur, what did this roadmap look like for you? You mentioned, early
Hmm.
days, $10,000 of capital, and maybe you can speak to how people who maybe aren't as strong in the financial component of business can
Yeah,
learn.
you can download, a profit and loss statement off of Excel for pretty much whatever. We have the tools. It's amazing. Google's amazing. For whatever business you're going into, let's say you want to open an escape room. You can type in profit and loss for an escape room, and you'll be able to download an Excel file that says, okay, employee salary, rent, utilities, marketing, your projected revenue, how many games do you think you'll sell, and that info is all out there. There's no particular resource that I can think of, but I think a
Okay.
lot of people tend to overcomplicate it when it's really, really simple.
Can you speak a little bit on scaling a new business or an emerging business? Because I know that you ultimately ended up with quite a few escape rooms.
Definitely, and that was my biggest challenge and biggest mistake at the same time. I had so much guts to go for the first one. In hindsight, it really wasn't that much because I didn't have too much to lose. You hear people say that, take the chance while you're young. It couldn't be more true. Even if you fail, failure is accelerated learning. Got that from Arel Moody. But the education that you get with that failure is significantly more than you can get, in my opinion, from the majority of classes that you pay for. Uh, but going back to the scaling, once I had the business finally where I wanted, I was cheap, admittedly, and that was extremely costly. I wanted to keep my costs as low as possible, and I paid employees, um, at the time, pretty much whatever I could get away with paying them, and that really, it's hard to say, but it's the honest truth, and that bit me in the butt because I'd have high turnover. So I learned that
Hmm.
lesson very quickly. And after, I don't recall how many months it was, 4 to 6 months, I finally hired someone and decided to pay them a serious salary. For an escape room, a little business, I decided to pay this person $40,000, which at the time, a 23-year-old offering a $40,000 salary to someone else is significant.
Hmm.
Um, so as soon as it gave me the opportunity to stop working in the business, but to work on the business and expand. So you
Hmm.
need those key players and that key staff in order to be able to scale.
Hmm.
Then it depends what industry you're in. Does it make
Yeah.
more sense to buy out a competitor, to build something yourself, so on and so forth? My route was buy out the nearest competitor and continue from there.
I think I would love to hear a little bit about. I know you recently decided to sell your businesses and maybe move on to more than one or two other options that are on your horizon. So, can you just
Yeah,
speak a little bit about what drove you to make those changes?
definitely. I love this question. So it goes back to the point I was just making. A cheap person pays twice. I got into a business that was cheap. Getting into a cheap business means there's going to be lots of copycats.
Hmm.
So when I was the second or third escape room on the island. 2 years later, there's 18 options.
Wow.
So that's not what bothered me because actually we're very fortunate that actually being younger, this was an advantage to me. Whereas everyone else was better at the construction element, I understood that to get customers, we needed strong search engine optimization. We want to be the first link on Google. I knew that from the get-go, which was massive. I sold because with so many competitors, they weren't necessarily chipping away at the business and the financials as much as they were chipping away at my soul. um, and what I mean by that is it got to a point where, I'm into video games. I'm into the design of the games. Like, yes, this interview's been, I've expressed my desire to accumulate capital, but also I got really into, I want to be the best and do my best at everything. So I created in what, in my opinion, was the best games possible.
Hmm.
And what started to happen was with all these competitors aren't getting business because they're on the second page of Google, third page of Google. So what do? They go and they advertise on discount sites like Groupon.
Mm, gotcha.
So now they're offering tickets at $20. I'm offering tickets at $30. So people are like, they're thinking that, and a lot of people unknowingly fall into this category, and it's no one's fault. I do myself all the time, but they say, oh, one's $20, one's $30. Why not get the $20 one?
Yeah.
And it's hard in a new industry to differentiate the quality. So here I am talking to customers all the time, giving them like this like deep educational basis of why you should spend 10 more dollars to come to my place. And I said, look, I can't do this anymore. If your phone rings 40 times and you're doing that 20 times
Yeah.
a day, it adds up.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big reasons. I can go on and on because there was a lot that went into it, but I'll just leave it at that.
No, that's fine. It just sounds like industries change, competitors pop up, and you kind of have to be able to analyze and assess when it's right for you as an individual business person to, make your exit.
Exactly. And I was really lucky. The timing worked out really well. And I'm taking those lessons and now I'm moving into a business that has a higher entry barrier. In other
Hmm.
words, it costs more money to get into it. Maybe you need $100,000 to get into it. But when you think about it, there's going to be less people that are able to enter this business so easily.
Hmm.
Um, and that will actually pay dividends in the medium to long term. It's not
Hmm.
very practical for most people. Everyone has to start somewhere. That's where
Hmm.
I started.
As we're wrapping up here, do you have any final words of wisdom, advice for people who are looking to make a jump and, be their own boss essentially?
I would just say know that all the resources are out there, and whatever career jump, whatever that you're looking to do, um, if you're looking to be a millionaire, it's called the rule of five. I'm not sure what book I read it in, but hang out with five millionaires. The people you spend the most time with, the five most people, is who you will morph into, whether it be grades, personality.
Hmm.
So whatever career it is, you want to be a doctor, go hang out with doctors. That's my quick final tidbit.
No, that's awesome. I really appreciate your time, Zach. Thank you so much.